So what about the national economy? The external environment is that I think that the recession in Europe will gradually abate and in emerging markets will get better, so global growth will pick up. But what about the US economy? Well, the number one concern heading into this year was the fiscal cliff. And you gotta love the analogies that we come up with, right? You know, the fiscal cliff to me, you know, conjures up an image of the end of the movie Thelma and Louise. Right, with this car, you know, driving towards the cliff. Now, if I've put an image in your head, you know, you got to now superimpose Ben Bernanke in the back seat of the car, screaming at the top of his lungs, "There's a cliff, turn away!" Right? Well, we did avoid the fiscal cliff. There was a tax agreement that extended the tax cuts for the vast majority of Americans. Now, at the end of the day, the tax agreement is going to have a negative impact on economic growth, because the expiration of the payroll tax cut is the equivalent of about a $700 increase in taxes for most American households. So that is going to act as a negative hit on economic growth. But the size of the drag is far less than it could have been. And this was ultimately what we knew was going to be the outcome, right? We knew that the fiscal cliff, if all the tax measures and spending cuts that were legislated were allowed to occur, what was going to happen was an economy that was trending at a growth rate of 2% was going to face a headwind of 3%, and that would have led to a renewed economic contraction. That was a completely unacceptable outcome, so it was inevitable in my mind that we would find a way around the cliff. Right? The real question was how messy, how protracted, and how ugly it was going to be. Right? It turned out that it was extraordinarily difficult, and in fact, in a sense, they also kicked the can down the road, because while the tax measures were dealt with, the sequestration spending cuts were not addressed. And the fact that the debt ceiling is going to be hit again towards the end of February, the Treasury can probably make its way into March. You know, the fact that the debt ceiling has to be increased again, you know, creates additional economic uncertainty. Now, at the end of the day, you know, if we think about what's been happening on the political front, it reminds me, and you'll have to forgive me about this, but it reminds me of Churchill's quote about America. You know, Churchill said, "America always does the right thing after exhausting all other options." Right? If we think about the politics of this, you know, when the financial crisis hit in 2008 and the financial system had seized up, the first attempt to pass the TARP bill failed. Right? It was only after it failed that they scrambled in order to put in place the legislation that was required to ensure the financial system remained viable. You know, if we think about the debt ceiling fiasco of 2011, again, you know, at the end of the day, an agreement was reached, but it ultimately cost the country S&P's AAA credit rating. The concern, I would say, is that we are back in that environment again with the debt ceiling and the division over how much spending cuts or what type of spending cuts are going to come. And I am concerned that this is not going to go smoothly and that this could have some financial market implications associated with it. Nevertheless, I am absolutely confident that the debt ceiling will in fact be raised again, and we will have some sort of agreement on how much spending cuts will actually take place. As an economist, I would say that really the main story on this front is that fiscal policy is going from being a tailwind to economic growth, helping to propel economic growth, to being now a headwind. Likely this year, fiscal policy will act as a drag on the economy, pulling down economic growth by about a point to a point and a half. And that's a significant drag. I think that that's going to be, you know, that's less than half of the entire fiscal cliff, but fiscal policy is going to be a drag on economic growth.